So welcome to the Miracle Code, Self-Healing for Illness to Health. As we go through the first part, I'll be going through the PowerPoint, and then at the end of that, I'll open up the lines, the chat room, and we'll have a little bit of time to discuss. So if you have any questions, go ahead and take some notes down about some of the highlights, or you can drop it into the chat. You'll find your tools at the bottom of the screen. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, but sometimes I don't see them as we go through. So if you can just keep some notes, we'll check in with that. So this course, the Miracle Code, is based both on my own experience with using NLP hypnosis for self-healing, but also in working with clients over the last 15 years. It's all about how do we apply these tools of managing our mind to affect our body, affect our system, even reduce symptoms, reduce body pain, discomfort, just by managing different levels within our mind. So we're going to go through some of the essential 6 steps to pay attention to, especially if you are dealing with some illness or chronic issue. The Center for Disease Control says as many as 1 in 2 Americans has a chronic illness, and 1 in 5 Americans has an autoimmune condition. So our numbers for these different illnesses are on the rise. And as far as chronic care or autoimmune care, there aren't necessarily great answers. But with what we'll cover today, you'll start learning some skills to take charge of your mind-body system, to get more on board and put your mind and body into the self-healing mode. So as I mentioned, this course, this is based on my own experience, but also in working with clients for 15 years. And before I came to the field of NLP and hypnosis, I was a river guide. We were running whitewater rivers in Oregon, and that's how I would spend my summers, taking people down the river. We do multi-day trips where we're camping and moving along as we go down the river. And before that, I was a backpacker wilderness guide. So the outdoor life was really my thing. I was into nature, the outdoors, living outside. I loved it. Yeah, I was camping, being out in the sun, and I started to notice that there were bruises, mystery bruises appearing on my body. Well, this was a little concerning. So I went to the doctor to see what this was, and they ran tests and didn't find anything. And sometime later, I started to notice that when I was in the sun, I would have like an itchy rash that would show up, a reaction to the sunlight. And so this went on a few more months. Finally, I went back to the doctor again. They did more tests, and they found that I had a chronic condition and an autoimmune condition. Now, autoimmune, there's many different 100+ different kinds of autoimmune, but it's where the body's own immune system starts attacking different cells or tissues in the body. So for instance, Crohn's disease, the autoimmune is attacking the body's lower bowel. Thyroid, Hashimoto's is where the body is attacking the thyroid. And so there's 100+ different kinds of these autoimmune conditions. Well, mine, the one that I had been diagnosed with, had been targeting some of my soft tissues and organs. So I was getting an allergy to sunlight, which was crazy for me because I'd always been an outdoor person, grew up in Utah, tons of sun, lived my summers in sunshine, outdoor jobs. So I'm outside all the time. And suddenly my body is starting to react to this. It became really clear very quickly that my life was going to change. And part of this change didn't include sunshine. So I was feeling pretty heartbroken and devastated at the time, and decided I needed to make some changes that I could really wanted to improve the quality of my life. Some of the symptoms I experienced was one, allergy to sunlight, but a lot of joint pain. So there were days that I was waking up that I could hardly move my joints or walk around. This was very disconcerting as well, because I'd always had an active lifestyle, out doing things, being active. And so my lifestyle was really changing. Well, around the same time that I was diagnosed, had also just gone through certification with hypnosis and NLP. And so from what I learned, I looked at applying what I already knew to start managing some of this condition. So my life went from whitewater rafting, backpacking, to staying at home, keeping out of the sun. And the adventure person in me could just kind of see my future cloud over. And it was kind of heartbreaking at the time. But as I really dug in and started applying what I knew, I started to make some changes that showed significant effects. So I'm going to just walk you through some of these areas. So this is the first one. I had previously certified as an herbalist with the Dr. Christopher School of Natural Healing. And their whole focus and approach was let food be thy medicine. This is a quote from Dr. Christopher and part of the training in the herbal medicine school. So being diagnosed, I always used natural remedies, herbal remedies for lots of different things. I used it for speeding healing, making a comfrey salve that can help speed the healing of injury. I'd used it for digestion issues, lots of different things. At one point, I even created an herbal toolkit and sold it at a health food store that I worked at in Eugene, Oregon. So lots of different things that I had studied and really appreciated about that. And I kind of had in my mind, oh, I'll just apply what I know and heal this autoimmune condition. Well, the formula didn't quite work for me. What ended up happening within a week of using an herbal formula is it made all the symptoms worse. So after a week, I could hardly move. And this was really, disconcerting, you might imagine. I couldn't, at the time I was building my business as an NLP hypnotherapy practitioner, I had a hard time getting up in the morning, couldn't even walk, couldn't even hardly make it to my networking meetings or my places to meet with people. But I really knew that there are some solid key principles in here. And even though the specific formula that they had for this condition wasn't a good fit for me, I knew that there were a lot of principles that I could continue to draw on. And so I continued to work with that, going back to the basics. So one major thing that I did is to recognize food as medicine. And in knowing your nutrition, there are certain foods that cause an inflammatory response in the body, and there are certain foods that cause an anti-inflammatory response in the body. This really depends on a general rule of thumb is how acidic they are, but that's not the only consideration. So this is how food gets digested. We eat food, it all goes to the same place, but when we eat food, our body is releasing 3 different types of digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and there's one more digestive enzyme, and they all work in the body. So some foods actually gear the body to create an inflammatory response, and some foods gear the body to create an anti-inflammatory response. So one thing that I started right off was switching my diet to more of the anti-inflammatory foods, which goes back to whole foods eating, fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, some grains, some are more inflammatory than others, and some nuts. But paying attention to really the quality of foods, going back to whole foods eating gives your body the nutrients that it needs, the enzymes, the nutrients that then unlock the processes in the body that can help your body heal and repair and do the functions that it needs to do for you. This made a huge impact. So I was really good with food and nutrition, followed a strict diet, and in about the space of a few different times I've gone back to this. But one time in particular, I recognized by cutting out certain things in my diet, my symptoms reduced by at least 50% during the week. So this was a huge piece of the puzzle that really made a difference. Now, when we start talking about changing your food, a lot of times people get really attached, even emotionally attached to the foods we eat because we're used to them, they're familiar. Even foods have meaning and story behind them. So I wasn't always great about being on track with the diet or the regimen that I knew that was better for me. And some of the big things that cause inflammation are actually some of the foods that we tend to crave the most, like sweets and breads. Bread has been a big one for me and made a big difference when I cut it out completely. But if we're getting a small reaction or response to foods, then that reaction from multiple foods or multiple responses add up to more of a symptom over time, especially. So this is one piece of the puzzle that made a huge difference. And if you're experiencing something like joint pain or difficulty with, well, even other forms of this can be other autoimmune forms that can keep us feeling at odds with our body, are really things that cause joint pain. When I talked with multiple naturopaths, they really come back to this key principle that there are foods that are causing inflammatory response and anti-inflammatory response. And the more we can get the body into the anti-inflammatory response, that's where the body is better able to heal and repair and do its adjustments. Now, there's other factors as well that have to do with your mind. What is your mind doing that is causing more of this reaction in your body? But this is one key place that if you can change the foods that you are eating, or even recognize sometimes people have sensitivity to a food without the full-blown allergy, but even that sensitivity will cause more of this inflammation. Many of the naturopaths that I talked with really said inflammation was the underlying issue behind all illness. And by significantly changing your diet to whole foods eating, cutting out the foods that are causing the inflammation, the inflammatory, or even the allergy response, helps your body get back to baseline and helps your systems to harmonize, heal, and repair. And again, this is a big piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only one. The other thing that I had mentioned, if you're starting to change your diet, you'll start to notice certain foods that you're accustomed to or used to, you may not want to change them. You feel drawn to them or you even crave them. Things like, bread or sweets for me. It was the pastry shop for me that was a big one. But over time, and especially now, there's a lot more options that we can use to shift and adjust our food to be more in line with what is good for our body. So as I mentioned, there are things that our mind is doing that are adding to either that inflammation or that anti-inflammatory response. So nutrition can be a big piece of the puzzle, what we eat, how foods affect us, how foods are affecting the body, and also how the body responds to the foods that we're eating. So if we're having obviously minor allergic reactions, we can have a whole host of symptoms that are not helpful or not fun. The other factor that goes right along with this is our mind. What is our mind doing? So this comes to the fight or flight versus rest and digest. So when our body is in fight or flight, in that stress response, our physical body is doing specific things because of that stress response. So I have two columns listed here. The one on the left side of the screen is the stress response. The one on the right is the relaxation response. And our system, our sorry, our parasympathetic and sympathetic systems represent both of the autonomic nervous system. So your body has a nervous system. One side, it operates in fight or flight. The other side, it operates in rest and digest. Now, we're just saying that as along a continuum, right? So the more that you're in the stress response, here's the symptoms that go along with that. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up, your blood is actually moves to the muscles of your body to help you fight off an attacker or run away. So the body prepares to get physical. Now, it also releases hormones that release quick energy. That quick energy helps metabolize the blood sugar that you can utilize it in your muscle system, giving you that burst of energy that you can fight off or run away. And the body goes into fight or flight mode. So when we're in the stress response, our body is preparing for that. And when we go back into relaxation response, it's working opposite of these symptoms. So the relaxation response, the heart rate decreases. The blood pressure goes down. Blood is now shunted or moved to the organs of the body. It recycles the hormones. So if you have those adrenaline, the epinephrine gets recycled and the body breaks it down and puts it back into the system. And digestion resumes. So when we're in relaxation, we go back into digestion. You might have done something in the past where you've just eaten a big meal and then done a workout. Well, if you overdid the workout, you might even found yourself kind of uneasy digestion or even throwing up if it's an intense workout, because the body is shutting down the digestive system to be in the movement. So you can see how these are working opposite of each other. And when we're in the relaxation response, the body is focusing in healing and repair. It's focusing on building new cells, repairing any damage or tissues. It's also creating antibodies. So the more we can get the body into the relaxation response, the more we are enhancing the body's natural ability for self-healing. The problem is that so many of us are in that stress response. We're in that stress response because we have busy schedules, busy lives. Life is a lot more convenient, but it's also a lot more demanding on our time. So it used to be that there was only one place in the house that had a telephone was hooked into the wall, and that was the only place to receive calls. Now, each of us typically has a phone. The phone follows us around wherever we go. We take it with us, and it's like we're always on call. When people leave a text message, how quickly are they wanting a response from their text message? Or even the voicemails, people expect a quick response now. Whereas before there was a little bit of lag time, now there's more demands on our time, more expectation with the time of getting back to people. So the problem is that more people are getting stuck in kind of the stress response and not coming back to the relaxation response, not getting the nervous system back into that relaxation response. So you've all heard about it's good to have stress relief activities. But what can you do about getting your brain out of the stress response before you get triggered? Now, this is where NLP and hypnosis can really make a big difference. You might even know some people that handle stress very well and other people that tend to flip out when small things go wrong. The difference is what their brain is running in the background. And a lot of these brain habits run automatically. Some we're aware of, but some are happening so fast, we're not aware of them. What we're aware of is the result. We feel more tense, we feel more irritable. Maybe we get irritated or less patient, or things tend to bother us when we're in the high stress state. Plus things like anxiety. How many people have anxiety triggers or anxiety brain habits? So our brain, when we talk about hypnosis NLP, we recognize that people can use it to change habits, and it's very commonly used to change habits like stop smoking or overeating. But we also have habits in what we think and how we feel. And it's especially those thinking and feeling habits that have everything to do with how our body is responding to this, either stress or the relaxation cycle. Now, the third piece of the puzzle, well, the piece of the puzzle that can really help, number 2, is meditation, along with that visualization and hypnosis. On my blog, and I'll send this after the notes, there's a great article that talks about 20 remarkable scientifically proven results with meditation. And this article is found on Psychology Today. There's actually listed in this article these multiple benefits. So one benefit, of course, is getting back to rest and digest, relaxation response. But there's other benefits as well that we maybe don't recognize as often. Has also been scientifically found to increase our sense of compassion, decrease our sense of loneliness. So if we're having more compassion and less loneliness, you can see how that goes along with that stress response cycle. What are the triggers, the patterns in the mind that are running things like loneliness, negative thinking, negative thoughts, and meditation is one of the things that can offset this. So meditation, they followed researchers, they did multiple studies. You can find all of these remarkable benefits in the article on the blog. And like I said, I'll include it with the link here. Now, these are scientifically proven by science. Other benefits of meditation that you find are things like, I just feel better. I have a clearer mind. I'm less stressed. So getting back to that relaxation response, I'm better able to focus, better able to concentrate. People feel like they have a refreshing, if you take a meditation window of time, even 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be an hour long. It doesn't have to be on a mountaintop. Even 10 minutes, 15 minutes can be enough to reset your brain, reset your nervous system, reduce things like heart rate, anxiety effects from that, and get back to a sense of inner calm and balance. Meditation, like anything else, gets stronger over time. Same with hypnosis. I like to say meditation takes you to the quiet space of the mind, and then hypnosis takes you beyond where meditation takes you. It takes you into actually directing your mind to work for you. Whereas a lot of meditation practices are really about clearing the mind or blanking the mind. That can be really hard for people to get to, especially in the beginning. So instead, a lot of people find hypnosis is much easier to follow than trying to blank their mind. This is because our mind likes to be busy. You give it some quiet space, and it's going to start running through, oh, here's my grocery list, and mapping out what you need to do in the next day or two. So your mind is always kind of busy like that. However, meditation trains your mind to get back to that clear space more quickly, creates kind of a new habit of your brain, a new ability to get back to that baseline. Hypnosis is all the benefits of meditation, plus we're actually engaging the mind to be working for you in different ways, changing habits, patterns, changing perspectives, shifting your attitudes about how you think and how you feel. And it's all your mind's own inner work. So it can have remarkable effects, not only in how we think and feel, but especially in changing those habits and patterns. So along with meditation is that stress reduction. As you saw before, we talked about the stress response. When we're in fight or flight mode, the body stops its healing and repair processes. So the more we can get it back into the rest and relaxation mode, the more that blood pressure is decreasing, heart rate is decreasing, cortisol and hormone levels balance out. A lot of our hormone imbalances are stress related because stress has a hormone that's released with the stress response. And all our hormones are working opposite each other. So if you have a high cortisol, it's going to affect some of the other hormones as well. Hormones regulate everything in our body, from sleep to awake cycles, from how we metabolize food, when we feel full, satiation. All of these things are really run by our hormonal system. So if we want to create better balance in the hormonal system, we really need to reduce stress levels or get the body back to baseline. In reducing that stress reduction, we also increase immune function, because that's where our body does that healing and repair. And it works on its antibodies, strengthening the immune system and preparing to, and even pulling out the foreign invaders of the body that our immune system helps to take care of. Now, the fourth key thing here is brain habits of stress. And as we mentioned before, we can have habits in what we do, like overeating or smoking, but we also have habits in what we think and how we feel. And it's these thinking and feeling habits that are directly related to the brain habits of stress that our mind is running. So even though some of my clients that come in for anxiety and stress, they have specific triggers that they know will cause that anxiety or stress response. So working with people in fear of flying, someone had a fear of snails, fear of malls. The things that our mind creates that brain habit around can be all over the board, but they all operate the same way. So by addressing these brain habits that our mind is running that keep us in the stress mode, we can actually come back to the relaxation response. We can curtail that stress response and stay in that relaxation and rest and digest mode. So coming back to the brain habits for just a minute, this is where NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnosis are really helpful. But to give you a little bit of background about NLP and how it works, so the term neuro refers to the neurons in our brain. Our brain is set up like a neural net that has multiple neurons that link together in chains. And when we learn something new, it's actually creating like a chain of these neurons through our brain. Well, when we create a habit, we have a chain of neurons that become wired together, and the habit runs so quickly it becomes default. So if you've ever had a habit like biting your nails, or a habit can be as simple as, oh, I wake up and the first thing in the morning, I go get my coffee. That can be a habit. It's wired into your brain, and your brain is saying, this, now it's time for this, or now it's time for that, right? So we have these brain habits wired through our brain, and now that's the neuro part, how our neurons link together. The word linguistic refers to our language patterns, how the language that we use affects what our brain thinks and how it operates. Even you look at specific words that are the same, the different word we use can have a different meaning attached. We see it more with the specific words we're using to define things in our life. For instance, when you listen to people talk, listen to the language patterns they use. Just being with a group of friends and this last little break that I had, a whole bunch of us got together, and some of us were going to the pool. As we headed to the pool, one of the friends piped up and said, "So you're going to abandon me?" We're like, whoa, abandon is a big word. No, we're going to leave to the pool. But her mind was referencing the word abandonment, which has a lot of negative association, where us going to the pool was a different word. So kind of recognize, you'll start hearing this more and more when you listen to how people are talking about something. It's really relating to how their mind is operating, what those automatic habits and patterns are. Now, the programming part of NLP refers to how our brain has been wired over time. So, for example, if you've had abandonment issues in the past, people or friends leaving you, then your mind references people leaving as a bad thing, right? Or it says, oh, different patterns like this always happens. Nobody likes me. It starts to generalize over time. So these are ones that a good practitioner is listening for. What are the words that you use to describe your experience or your problem? And what is that telling us about how your brain is wired? Now, our programming really comes from our past history, what our brain is wired to focus on, to notice and to do and to run automatically relates to our past history. So you think about a 5-year-old brain. Think about a little 5-year-old, if you've had nieces or nephews or children, their brains are just open, they're soaking everything in, the information is coming, they just don't have a very good filter. Think about all that they're learning. They're soaking in a new language, body language, social cues. They're learning about culture. They're learning how to manage a little body and get it to do what they want to do. They're learning how to be active, right? So you think about that 5-year-old brain, it's just soaking everything in. So if mom comes home and yells, the 5-year-old brain doesn't say, oh, she must have had a bad day. The 5-year-old brain says, oh, it's me, I'm wrong, I'm bad. And then we take it on. Now, if this is repeated over time, it becomes a bigger like brain habit that we can have different kinds of effects over time. Like, oh, me, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm the problem, or however that goes. Talk to anyone that's had difficulty with school and you'll see different patterns that their brain is running. Now, this goes into every walk of life because we carry our brain with us, right? So our programming of what our mind is referencing automatically is always referenced. The tools of NLP, we don't need to be in a hypnosis state to get the change that we want. We can help the mind shift those brain habits and patterns even very quickly. And however, all of the skills that we use in hypnosis the skills that we use in NLP can be translated into hypnosis, and the skills we use in hypnosis can be translated into NLP. So it's really a set of skills in how our brain processes information, how to tap into your brain's own coding system, and how to then update and change it. So in my own history, this screen, I really want to talk about the conscious and unconscious mind and how this relates to my own history of the self-healing journey. And I call this body redirecting and resolving. So if you recognize all of us have this past programming, past brain habits that our mind has been running, well, there's different ways that our brain is then wired over time. So for instance, you can see this directly. If you have a certain friend that you compliment, oh, you look great today, and they won't take the compliment. They'll say things that dismiss it or brush it off like, oh, I couldn't get my eyes on right, or my hair was such a problem. Like they'll look at kind of the downside rather than just say thank you. They're not allowing or receiving the compliment. That comes to do with how they think and feel and believe about themselves. So when we talk about resolving or redirecting the body redirecting, there are certain patterns that the body is doing because of how our mind is relating to ourselves or the world around us. So here on the left, you'll see an image of an iceberg. Now, this is a great way of explaining how the mind works, is like an iceberg. At the top part of the water, it's a much smaller portion of the iceberg, but this is what we see, what we pay attention to, what we notice. This is like our conscious mind, much smaller portion. It's only about 10%, but our conscious mind, this is where we're setting goals. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to eat right. But then, so here's a very common one. I use this because we talked about nutrition. I'm going to eat healthy, but then what happens? Well, we start noticing certain things like, foods that we know aren't good for us. Oh, I just need a soda pop or chips or something. We get a craving for it. Well, those cravings that go against the knowledge that we know of what to do are really run by the deeper part of our mind. It's run by the unconscious mind. Now you can see the iceberg, the stuff underneath the water represents our unconscious mind. I call it the automatic mind because it's in charge of whatever's running automatically. whatever the mind is running automatically is these patterns and programming from our past history. Now, how does this relate to our conscious and unconscious mind? How does this relate to our body's health or even illness and symptoms that we might have? Well, the body, if we're holding on to at the unconscious level, past negative events, beliefs, emotions, it can actually affect our health. Health can restore with clearing the underlying unconscious issues, as well as other things can be shifted, updated, changed when we address the deeper layer of the mind to change the automatic habit or pattern. Now, there's a couple books that talk specifically about how body symptoms are referenced in how our mind relates to our symptoms. Now, for some people, it's like old hat. I know this, I've been following this a while. For some people, it's a little bigger of a stretch to recognize, oh, because of my beliefs, my body is responding to that. But I want you to think for a minute, think about something that causes you stress. Something that causes you stress. Is it getting your bills in the mail? Is it driving down the street in traffic, driving on a busy highway? For me, somebody cutting me off, that triggers my stress response. But as you think about this stressful situation, even just thinking about it, notice, how does your body respond? We start feeling tense. We start feeling, the body starts holding tension in different places. We might even feel like shallow breathing, that we're just not breathing as deeply. Or we might, after getting stressed, we might then relax when we're feeling that relief and being like, I was holding my breath. Here's another way. So I want you to recognize that our mind, what our mind is running, directly affects our body and how our body is responding. So this is one of my favorite exercises. Go ahead and out in front of you on your hand, imagine that you're holding a lemon. And imagine seeing it right there in front of you. See its golden, waxy surface. Notice the dimples on the skin of the lemon, how the light is glinting off the lemon. And now imagine taking that lemon and taking a knife, cutting through the lemon into the two halves. And you see the two halves of the lemon there. You can smell the fresh lemon scent, and take one of those halves up to your nose and just inhale that fresh lemon scent, that fresh, clean scent. And now imagine just biting into the lemon, just biting into it. Those sour juices flowing across your tongue. You can feel those sour juices flowing. Now notice, how did your body respond? So just in the visualization, you didn't really have a lemon, but especially with biting into it and going through the visual and this what it smells like even, and then imagine biting into it. I can feel my mouth pucker as I imagine biting into that lemon. So just by how you think about it, the body is physically responding to that you can have even physical sensation. Well, it's the same with the stress response. At a conscious level, you recognize your body holding on to tension, but over time, those inner habits, stressors, negative thoughts, feelings, emotions that we hold on to, the body then starts physically responding to that through the symptoms or the pain that we carry, or the difficulty that our body starts having difficulty in different ways. Now, there's a couple books about this that talk even more in depth. If you talk to any massage therapist that's been working for a solid window of time, a few years, they will tell you, yes, there are different, when they massage different places where the body holds tension, that the body holds on to past negative emotions physically in our body and our tissues. These two books, one, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, has a really good indication of here's like the negative belief system that is referenced to here's the symptom the body is expressing, and here's the correlating negative belief system of what the mind has to let go or heal in order to help heal or move that condition forward. It's a fascinating book. It's an easy read. I keep it as a reference It's just interesting to notice what those things are. There's other processes that I use that get a whole lot more specific, but it can be a good guide and a good reference to that. The other book, this one's a little more recent that came out, is The Body Keeps the Score. Talks about, and this goes back to our NLP, our programming, having gone through the experiences we did in life. If our mind is holding on to past negative events, past negative emotions, then it's stored somewhere, somehow in the body and expressed even in the body. Ultimately, it can lead to health or illness issues. So those are good ones to have in your reference. Now, a sixth area of focus that we especially go into in the 6-week class, Train Your Brain for, the Miracle Code, is spiritual healing. Now, there's some different ways that we recognize spiritual healing. And some of the ones that are most common in keeping people stuck are in past traumas. If the mind is holding on to past traumas, there's a whole lot there that's kind of packed in the system, in the background, that is interfering with how you are operating on a day-to-day basis and how your body is responding to that. Negative stories. So for instance, if we have a negative story, like, oh, I hear this quite a bit actually, is people will come in and say, oh, I'm not smart. I'm stupid. I was told this in school. I have, difficulty with reading. I'm not a really smart person. So they got this label when they were in school, but their mind has held on to it over time, and it becomes a repeating story or even a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we don't think we're a smart person, we're not going to really stretch or grow ourselves in that way. We might even shy away from studies or reading books or doing things that would practice the skills to feel smarter, right? So we might not go for the expanded degree or the continued learning. So this is how those relate to those ongoing patterns. Now, another is limiting beliefs and patterns. And of course, that was illustrated through the negative story. Oh, this one, the story is this happened. One time the teacher told me I was stupid because I got a bad grade on the test. And now the limiting belief is, now I am not smart. I'm a dumb person, or I'm not smart enough. So I don't go for things I want in life. I don't step up for the promotion. So you can see how those things are kind of interconnected. Now, other things that are a little more tricky are things like generational blockages. When I started working through a lot of these layers of past traumas, healing my own negative stories, my own limiting beliefs, I also found, as I was talking to my mom, it sounded like my grandma may have had similar symptoms to the ones I had. That when she was in the sunshine, her skin would also have an allergy response or an irritation. She wasn't quite as active as I was, so I don't know if it really affected her life as much. However, those generational patterns or blockages can be handed down. Same with kind of genetics, that our mind, body, spirit system has a way of how things line up, and those generational beliefs can be passed down through the generations. And the final one is soul's lessons. Maybe there are certain lessons that we came to this world to learn, to experience, to go through, but I believe are lessons that ultimately we were meant to overcome the challenges in life, that we were meant to grow beyond some of the limitations that we've experienced and where we feel stuck in life, that we're meant to move beyond them, or to grow larger than the problems that we're carrying. So to give you a quick recap here, here's the 6 essentials for self-healing. So the very first one we talked about is nutrition and plant foods. This is probably one of the easiest ones to do because you can notice the changes very quickly. Even after 10 days of starting a whole foods diet, If you're experiencing joint pain or lack of energy, some of these things will start coming back. Your body will start normalizing or harmonizing as you're reducing that inflammation response in your body. Now, reducing stress. We know that stress has a big impact on our health and our symptoms. So we know the Center for Disease Control, in fact, one of their statistics is 90% of the reasons that people go to the doctor actually due to stress, to aspects of stress. Aspects of stress are definitely a piece of any chronic illness, autoimmune condition, and there's different levels to that. So there's outside stress, just being busy, having timelines, but the third one is the inner stress. What is the inner stress of the brain habits and patterns that are causing that stress response? Those inner stress habits are things like feeling triggered with anxiety can be an example of that. But it's also like if your mind is running something like there's not enough, like there's quotes, there's not enough time, I can't get everything done. You can see how if the mind is running the pattern, I can't get everything done, the response to that is going to be more emotional frustration and stress, right? So whatever our mind is running is causing some of the thoughts and feelings in our day-to-day that are either working for us or working against us. And so NLP and hypnosis are really those ways of tuning the brain to get working for you. The fourth one, visualizing and meditation. We talked about some of the benefits of that. Check out that blog post. I have that article posted, the 20 things. It was one in particular was it actually changes your brain. Meditation actually can grow certain areas of your brain that are associated with compassion and connection and allay loneliness. So it actually changes your brain, which is fabulous. And also good to know that it's actually making a difference. And then 5, resolving those mind-body patterns. What are the patterns that are being expressed through the unconscious mind in what other health or symptom or illness that you might be holding? And in NLP and hypnosis, there's a whole host of skills that are specifically targeted to resolving those patterns of the mind, and especially how they show up in the body. And then 6, some tools for spiritual healing. Now that can be as easy as how do I feel about myself? Is your mind talking well to yourself? Are you encouraging yourself? Or many of us, even like 90% of us, have some kind of inner critic that is being negative or causing more stress in how we think, how we feel. And that also has a large impact on how our body responds to that. So here's the 6 essentials for self-healing. Now, if you want more skills, the next class coming up is Learn Meditation and Self-Hypnosis. This class, you can find out more information at thebraintrainerllc.com/classes, or you can call and text for this free consultation if you have a specific issue or challenge that you want to work on. You'll find more information there about the upcoming classes. The Learn Meditation and Self-Hypnosis, the next one, I think it's the second week in May that I'm running that one. It's online. It will be recorded and available. However, it's not, it's only recorded and available to the people that sign up for it because we're not able, because of the nature of how it's set up. We do a lot of practice and exercise. So we do highlight the concept and then we practice the concept, highlight the concept, practice this concept. It's a lot of fun. It also gives you a skill for learning to apply the skills for your own benefit, both for your mind and for your body. And we go into some of the different levels that you can start utilizing your mind to help you shift or adjust some of those things in your life. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share and open up the lines for communication.